The
Good.
countdown. Oh, wait. It's already on there now. Okay. All right. We're good to go?
We're good to go. Let's do it.
All right. Hello, everyone. Welcome back to Uncovered. We are now into our third season. So we have started recording some amazing episodes, and we have another amazing episode today. We're calling it The Good, the Bad, and the Lumpy. We have an amazing guest on, Dallas Dee. Welcome, Dallas, to our podcast.
Thanks for having me. Hey guys, how you doing?
We're good. How are you going today?
Good. Another day in lockdown in Sydney, but good. It's nice and sunny.
we have to take the positives.
Yeah, we have a rainy day today. So for those of you that don't know, Dallas is in Sydney, and we are doing this over like a, like a Zoom call. I don't know how else you would kind of explain
like
it.
Zoom,
So this is exciting. This is our first guest we've had that we haven't had actually in person. So something new for us as well. But we do have her on video, so it's good to be able to see the faces.
Yes.
So today we've yet to discuss anything breast implants on our podcast, and obviously there are so many women out there that do pole that have breast implants and that have experienced, that have all different kind of experiences with it. So Dallas has a pretty amazing story as well, and I think that this will help with a lot of our listeners.
Yeah, 100%. And we reached out to Dallas because we were talking about it when we were brainstorming for season 3. We were talking about it and we're like, I think it was, you have a friend who, when she got breast implants, the way that she polled changed. So we're like, great topic. But then we've also seen your story on Instagram. So we thought, what a great person to get on and talk about it all. So Dallas, welcome. And do you want to start with just giving the listeners and the viewers a little rundown of who you are and what you do in the pole world?
Sure. Yeah. Look, hi. Well, as you said, my name's Dallas Dee, and I have been polling for a very long time. I should be much better than I am based on the amount of years I've been doing it. Let's say like 14 years maybe.
Wow.
I started like everybody else, dragged to like one of those hens party type vibes, and I was the only surviving friend who stayed the first term, okay? I wasn't a dancer. I was a gymnast back as a kid, but nothing really that kind of, made me awesome at pole. I just got that, instant gratification, learned a new trick every week, kind of buzz that everybody still gets, that kind of like high from when you first learn. I was at Bobby's back in the day.
Yes.
Oh, wow.
Back in the very first studio there. I was recruited to teach after a couple of years. I started teaching for Jamila when she was in Sydney, and then I taught at a few different studios. I established my business, Show Pony Pole and Burlesque, on the Northern Beaches, which is where I live in Sydney. So that was about 6 years ago now. I started competing pretty early in my pole career, but I stopped for a long time while I was teaching. I had a few muggle career jobs in the meantime. I did journalism in my first degree and studied some marketing, and then I went and did my master's in teaching, school teaching. So I did that for a while, but I don't know, just pole dancing. If you can make it a career, why wouldn't you, right? Except for like the money and that sort of stuff. But it just stayed with me as like a bug that I never could get rid of. So like I said, I established my studio about 6 years ago. And I think I kind of returned to competing around that time just because I felt like if you're going to call your studio Show Pony, then you probably need to put on some shows, right? So you better start competing again.
If anyone hasn't seen Dallas's shows, go on YouTube, check her out on Instagram. Like, we'll link it all. Like, it's just like there's nothing like Dallas's shows. You just
look, I guess I've always loved the show element of it. I think in some ways I've always kind of like thought what I would like to see on a stage. I want to do. I love the show, the ridiculousness. That when I used to go to Miss Pole Dance, and I used to go as someone who would sit in the audience. Just it's like that's where the magic happens. It's like it's make believe for a couple of hours, and you're watching magic. I was there when Felix put on the first batch cuff. I was there, when Allegra did the first Allegra, and it's like watching history and magic unfold in front of you. So when I was able to get up on some of those biggest stage, and it still absolutely blows my mind that I've been up on those big stage and danced alongside those people, I feel like I want to fill the room with ridiculousness and magicness. So that's when you enter like pyrotechnics and live musicians and bagpipes and I get it is just I'm like, what else can we do? I think the Emerald banned glitter after my You're the Voice. They literally banned it. They were like, no more. I think it was like
there's actually so many so many competitions that's banned glitter. It's all your fault.
Yeah, it's all me. It is me.
We just have to get more creative.
No, exactly. So look, I'm probably the show in lots of comps that I go for, and that's always going to be my aim. Usually the sponsor's choice or like the people's choice. But along the way, I now produce a lot of events and kind of do a lot of mentoring and coaching. Just because I'm 35 now, which is like pole dance years are like dog years. So if I started at 21, I'm like a billion now, right? So my body is saying a bit more like no as opposed to yes these days. I still have the drive. I might compete a bit more, but so more like I do create events for upcoming performers. So I do glitz for pole dancers. I do tassels and tees for burlesque. I do like an in-house comp for my studio as well. But it's more kind of like the newbies coming through. And we were saying before we went online, man, the newbies coming through are doing spatchcocks in amateur comps. So I'm more than happy to just kind of watch for most part these days. But that's me.
That's exciting. I think the show element is so important, and having seen some of your shows, it definitely comes out. So guys, you need to go check her out. But
I need to be better at YouTube. I need to upload all my stuff. It's afraid I've got so many other things to do. I've got actual, teaching people pole dancing and cleaning my studio during COVID. It takes a lot of time, but I'll go put some videos up on YouTube.
Yes. And then when she does, guys, we'll let you know that they're there.
There you go.
But YouTube's a whole nother thing. So we've just started putting
YouTube, Vimeo, Insta. I don't even know what Twitter is. I don't do that. TikTok, Matt. Yeah.
Oh gosh. But guys, today we're here to talk about all things breast implants. So, we're just going to start with probably the most basic question you can. Why did you make the decision to get breast implants?
Yeah, that's fair. Okay, so look, really, really quickly, I had an eating disorder from about 14 to about, I'm still in recovery from an eating disorder, but quite unwell until I was about early 20s. Yeah. I had quite a dramatic weight loss very quickly and sustained it for a long time. But because I did it, I guess, at quite an important part of my development, I feel like, things like my cycle and just kind of your hormones, it was a really gnarly time to do that to your body. So even though after about my early 20s, my weight was sustained and some of the things that were affected, like my hair loss and whatever, came back, my hormones, I just feel like never really kicked back in some elements. So things like, my cycle never really came back properly. It's still kind of dealing with that now. But also, and, a lot of my stores that I'd kind of eaten away at were still struggling to be replenished. And then, things like my breast tissue just never really came back. So I was left with kind of like as if I'd breastfed a couple of babies at about 21, 22, because they were there and then they weren't there. So I wanted to get them done, but I wanted to just get what I had before. I wasn't really interested in getting like massive boobs, and no offense, like they're epic if you want to get massive boobs, but it wasn't my thing. I just wanted to get kind of what I had before, fill in this flappy skin that was going on. So actually it took me on a bit of a journey. I had to go through several surgeons to try and get what I wanted, because a lot of them just thought, we'll go a little bit bigger, because that's what all the girls want. And so I found this surgeon, and he approached it kind of like almost like a reconstruction, so he dealt with a lot of women who had mastectomies and issues with their breasts removed. And so we put in some really, really small implants behind the muscle, which is very uncommon for pole dancers, because pole dancers usually put them in front of the muscle, just because if you think about it, if you put it behind and you constrict when you do movements like lifting and pulling. But because they were quite small, they were really natural and really kind of not, the recovery wasn't huge for me because the skin was already quite stretched. I didn't go very big. But it just allowed me to, wear clothes and fill out, costumes and just not be aware. Like there's so many other things to worry about. Do you know what I mean? And so I lived quite happily with them for, I don't know, 7 or 8 years. I just never really thought about them. Like I said, lots of people get implants for lots of different reasons, but mine was never to be like, it was more just like, let's focus on other stuff. Because that was, it was a concern of mine, but it wasn't like a focus point for me.
And everyone has their own reasons why they do it as well. And you were saying before that obviously there's like behind and in front of the muscle. I was talking to Steph the other day, and I have a friend that went behind the muscle, and she's just saying like she feels like it's never the same again. Like she used to do heaps of push-ups, and then push-ups was like the one thing she couldn't do for ages after. Yeah. So did it impact any of your pole journey, like doing certain tricks?
So subsequent to the surgery that we'll talk about in a sec, so when I had them removed, there was a 50-50 chance as to whether or not I could put them back in. Yeah. And I wasn't really sure if I wanted to get them back in for that reason. But I also knew that I'd be left with a lot of extra skin and flappiness if I didn't. So they did, and I'll say that my first recovery from my first surgery, no, not at all. But in this second one, yes, definitely. And it might just be because I'm a bit older and my recovery is going to take longer or whatever. But yeah, look, I mean, as a general rule, it's more like a feeling of like not they're going to go anywhere, but they just feel a bit awkward in things like specifically, when you do, I don't know what you guys call it, like a iguana, like iguana, okay, and you do like a plank and you kind of go out there, that kind of, it goes really, those sorts of things I've always kind of gone away from. It just feels a little bit tight. But this second surgery, more kind of like, they're kind of muscling for space in there, and it doesn't feel great just yet. I have hopes that they'll go back, but maybe not, It is really, that's why most pole dancers and athletes go in front of the muscle. But the reason I had to go under the muscle was because I had no breast tissue at all, and they would have been like, like the ridge, you can see it.
See the actual implants.
Yeah, exactly. And which leads me on to why I chose these anatomical implants, and they call them anatomical implants or teardrop implants. And this is where all the trouble started. So I'll develop a little bit further, but the anatomical implants are basically a teardrop implant. So they don't go up like this, they come down, and they're good if you don't have a lot there and you want to look kind of natural, but they're not good in other ways. So
yeah, because you obviously can go different shapes, can't you? Because you've got the round and the teardrops.
Well, okay, you can, but so the reason I was so vocal is that the ones that I got and the teardrop implants, they're not really doing anymore because they're quite problematic in that they can lead to the stuff that happened to me. Because the teardrop implants, I'm not a doctor, but so basically if you have round implants, they can move around like this. But if you have a teardrop implant, if they move around, then you're in trouble, right?
True.
So they do what's called a rough texture on your implant if it's a teardrop, so it sticks in there nice and kind of firmly, so it doesn't move around, doesn't give you that weird shape. But that rough texture is what leads to the problems that I've had.
Interesting. I do want to just jump back a second, like a quick thing before we go forward.
Exactly.
Had you already started pole before you got your breast implants? Or it was during your pole journey that you got them done?
Yeah. And so I had about a term off, and that's what I'm saying. The recovery was pretty okay the first time around. I was a baby. I was 22, I think. And I could come back incremental, like I could build myself back up. I didn't have to come back to Miss Pole already after the first kind of one. So I took the term off. I'd probably been doing about a year. Took the term off, came back at like two levels lower, and then built myself back up, and it was pretty good. Combination of, like I said, youth and small implants, and the fact that I'd already had quite kind of decent boobs. They weren't stretched out. I wasn't struggling with that.
Yeah, so I guess the initial breast implant procedure didn't cause you any troubles. Let's get into now, like, one of the main reasons, like, why we're talking about this. So what actually happened?
Yeah, so look, okay, I'll preface this by saying that health-wise, I'm fine, and I'm so lucky. I don't want it to build to this crescendo and then be like, and then I was fine. But so I started, like I said, my boobs weren't my like primary focus. I just got them because I wanted to be able to do the things I wanted to do. They weren't really a big thing. So if I'm honest, I probably wasn't really focused on them as far as like what was happening with them. Was I really aware of, any changes for the first 8 years? They say that there's a lifespan of about 10 years with implants. And if I'm honest, I feel like I started to have a little bit of changes, a little bit of stuff going on about the 8-year mark. I got to about 10 years and my right was a little bit smaller than my left. My right was harder than my left. And I had I call them like little echo pains. So it's kind of like this radiating pain that would just kind of like echo through my chest. It would be quite stitch-like, but then it would kind of radiate through. And it's so easy as a pole dancer to dismiss the pain as muscular pain, or you've overworked yourself or whatever. And it's also, there's a little bit of, if I'm honest, like a little bit of shame and a little bit of like, well, you've done this to yourself. Implants are going to hurt. You've done this, so just deal with the pain. Because it's probably something little that you've done this, so just deal with it. So I didn't really get them checked out for a little while, even though there was probably some signs happening there, and they didn't. Yeah, I didn't want to focus on it, and I didn't have how much money it was going to change to fix them, right? So it wasn't until earlier this year where I just kind of like thought, I got to bite the bullet a little bit here and just go back to my doctor and just see what the price point is to get these babies replaced and how long I'm going to recover for. So I went to my doctor, and my doctor since is not operating anymore, but I went to that surgery, and thankfully I did go back to that surgery because they had a record of what was in me, right? And it turns out that the process of getting them removed and replaced wasn't going to be as simple as I thought, because the actual implant that I have had been recalled all around the world, as far as any implant that hadn't been put in somebody was not going to be sold or put into anybody in the future. And the wording from the FDA was people who have them in them should be told. They should be told. I wasn't told. No, I didn't get an email or a phone call, but we should be told, because there was a link found between the implant that I have and a form of large cell lymphoma. Basically, the textured implant that I have, the reason why it sticks in there really well is because it's rough and it kind of like sits in your breast tissue and it kind of hides in there quite well. But if you think about it, like imagine like sandpaper, it rubs and it infuriates the cells around it, and it can create inflammation and just kind of like angriness. And that angriness is where this lymphoma or these cells like to grow and kind of populate, and they hide quite well behind there. But the thing is that, without getting gnarly conspiracy theory on you, it's that we haven't had a big legal, it's still a very an emerging thing that's happening. There's something ridiculous like 30,000 women, 30,000, 300,000 women around the world who have these implants in them. And there's nobody putting their hand up saying, oh, we did the wrong thing here, we'll pay for you to get the implants out. There's yet to be class actions with them. There have been legally class actions that have been found in women who had their breasts removed for cancer and then have put in spaces made of this same stuff. They've cancelled those ones. But basically, it's still an emerging thing where legally these companies have put these things in there which have a really big link between cancer, but we haven't gotten to the point where we've all been told about it. So I wasn't told about it. I went to my doctor and she said, firstly, you need to get an MRI to see what's going on in there. If there's any ruptures or anything going on, you need to get it all tested, the fluids tested to make sure this isn't happening. And then if it's all clear, I'll take them out and replace them. And if it isn't, then you have to go to an oncologist and we'll have to go down that road. And this is all very crazy to me, considering I thought it was just going to be just a price point on it. It cost me to get them out. So I got an MRI. It was like $800 with no cover, because this is still seen as aesthetic. We're not. Then I had ruptures in both of my implants, which was a surprise to me because, like I said, I come somewhat disassociated with them. I hadn't really focused on them. I was like, oh, they don't feel great, but I haven't really focused on it. So then, and there was also some fluid around the implant, which is where the bad stuff starts to happen. It's basically if your body starts creating fluid, a pocket around it, it's because there's inflammation there, and that can be where things are going wrong. So I had this, gnarly 2-week period of having to go in and get a really big needle into my breast and suck out all this fluid. And they tested it, and it was, probably like the scariest 4 or 5 days of my life. And thankfully, like I said at the start of this, it came back that there wasn't the cells in development yet, but it's the environment it likes to happen in. So there's nothing to say that it wouldn't stop. It wouldn't start in the next month, year, or whatever. It also showed that there was a significant amount of silicon leaching, which means that the silicon cells had gone out into my breast tissue. I will be there forever now because of the ruptures. So, yeah, my doctor said, get them out. The general saying from doctors at the moment is get an ultrasound every 6 months if you have these implants out. They don't want people to get them out straight away just because if they're not ruptured or whatever. Yeah. If I had known, I would have got mine out the second that I found out, but that's everyone's personal preference. But yeah, so then I had to get mine out. And it's not just a surgery like a, cut and then take them out. It was actually removing a lot of stuff in there. And like I said, they were able to put some implants in there, but then the recovery was drains and all sorts of stuff. So yeah.
All right. Wow, that's a lot. I
can
imagine, yeah. But you're like, they were the 4 or 5 scariest days of my life, and I think that's super valid. That's
once you found out about that, was it pretty quick? Was it like, okay, we're going to go in emergency? It's like
look,
now.
I mean, so there's no real time frame. Some women have developed this sort of lymphoma up to 8 months from getting the implant, and some of them have had the implants for 30 years and got it. Do you know what I mean? There's no real indicator as to when it can happen at any point. So I wasn't willing to just sit back and be like, okay, let's just wait and see if I get it. So I got it out preemptively, which is problematic as far as my insurance company is concerned, because I got them out preemptively. It's seen as aesthetic surgery as opposed to, do you know what I mean? Which is ridiculous, and it's horrible. And that's again why a lot of these companies aren't acknowledging the link to it just yet, because there'd be liability there. But so I just decided that I was going to do it, and thankfully, I'm not in a financial position to do it, but I had a lot of help from my husband and my family to try and get this done. But yeah, so I had to have them out. It's a much more expensive procedure than the initial one. I think my initial breast surgery cost me $12,000, which was a lot of money back then because these very special implants were extra. I think I spent an extra $3,000 for these implants. But yeah, the including all of the MRIs and the ultrasounds, I think my surgery would have cost me about $22,000 this time, and virtually none of it's covered.
And what sort of implants did you get in? After
not just round ones and round and not rough. But yeah. With the surgery that they had to do, like I said, there was a good chance that they weren't going to be able to put anything in there, and I actually don't even know. I was kind of on the fence about what I wanted to do. It just felt very sudden. But with the surgery, I was in there for a significant amount of time, like about 3 hours or something, and they had to cut away a lot of stuff, a lot of scar tissue, a lot of bad stuff in there. And so there was a lot of bleeding. So I came out with these gnarly drains that kind of lived on me for about 5 days, and I had to empty them into these gross little packets and whatever. But yeah, it was anything except glamorous, the recovery from this one, like almost the opposite of, the previous one.
I guess if you decided to not get the implants in again, then if you decided like 2 years later you wanted them, then that's like another surgery. That,
well, that was a prospect that I was facing anyway. So if I decided that if I wanted them but they couldn't put them in, then it was a whole other surgery again. Exactly. If I'm super honest, I wish I probably would have been able just to get a lift. I think like in retrospect, I'm just not that fussed about them. But that being said, I'm not unhappy with them now. But just the recovery for a lift, it was they literally like cut your nipple off and they lifted. It was weird. It was more intense for me to think about. So I just kind of got them out and got it back in and just but yeah, it was a lot in a very short amount of time.
Yeah, and something that you obviously were not anticipating to happen. Like you said, it was there. So you talked about the ruptures. So I just want to get my head wrapped around it. So it was leaking. The fluid of the actual breast implant was leaking into your, and that's where you got that fluid buildup that sort of set on.
No. So the most of the implants they put in women these days, it's called a silicone cohesive gel. So it's kind of like, I often think of it as it's not, but when you have a popper and the straw is stuck to the popper, that sticky stuff. Okay, it's kind of like a congealed-y kind of stuff, right? So when there is a rupture, the reason I didn't know it was ruptured per se is because it actually kind of stays in the bulk of where it is. It doesn't necessarily, it's not like saline, it doesn't completely go into the rest of your body. It kind of stays in a lump, right? But so there was two ruptures in my right and one in my left. The one on the left is actually like there was a hole in the middle of the implant, and so it was actually kind of coming out towards the back to my chest wall. The right ones are up the top here. So they kind of just stayed where they are, but they were like the implants here, it was like a little bubble, right?
Yeah.
So the fluid around it was just my body's way of saying they like to isolate, like they could recognize there was something going on in there. So they send fluid or inflammation around there to kind of like separate it. So it kind of, the body recognizes that there's something wrong there. So, that's why I had to have the capsulectomy. So that's what that was all about.
Yeah. So what is a we've been trying
capsulectomy.
Thank you. So was that the process of taking them out, cleaning out the area?
Yeah. It's a very sanitized way of saying around so when they put implants into your body, again, things I never knew at 22. When they put implants into your body recognizes it as a foreign object, and it creates scar tissue around it, and that's what they call a capsule. And it's so much nicer to say capsule than scar, gross stuff around you. So basically it looks like, if you ever Google them, they look like these gross like ball sacks around your implants. It's gross. It's kind of like, but so depending on the level of issues that are going on, it gets very thick and very kind of like yuck. So my right breast had actually, when they stuck the needle into it, it caused what's actually called a capsule contracture. So it sends it into a really angry state of like thickness and kind of like hardness. So it was really, really angry and not happy that it was there. So in order to get a capsulectomy, which is what you have to do if you want to try and bypass some of these problems with this lymphoma, it's still not 100% per se. It could develop, but it's much less. Capsulectomy is go in there. It's like a clean sweep of everything. One of my capsules had adhered itself to my chest wall, so it was stuck on there. So they had to cut away a lot of it. So that's what I'm saying. It was a much yuckier surgery to get in there and to get rid of everything rather than to put a nice clean one in there, because they have to do that and then stop the bleeding and then put a new one in there and be happy that it's kind of like happy in there. So that's why they had to put drains in there to kind of like drain away all the gross stuff that was floating around in there after surgery.
Yeah, because now your body is obviously going to go through that process again and create new capsules for your new breast implants. And is the lifespan on breast implants, like even now, still about 10 years, like with your new ones?
Yeah, and that's another thing. Like, I just it's not to put anybody away from having breast implants, but just know that it is a 10-year thing, and it's a 10-year kind of like that's a good time. Do you know what I mean? Like as a pole dancer, you're maybe you're going to throw yourself around a bit more than other people, a bit more active. But yeah, it's 10 years, and every 10 years you can look forward to another $20,000, if not more, or whatever, just because it's an ongoing, it's a maintenance. Do you know what I mean? It's but yeah, things you don't know at 22. But yeah, so when I'm how long am I going to be at 45 or whatever? I'll have to do it again. If I feel the way I do now, I won't get them back in again at 45. I'll just deal with whatever's happening there, and I might get a lift. But yeah, definitely, it's about 10 years, 12 years maybe if you're lucky.
Yeah, I have had like the lifts too, because I had a friend who got breast implants years ago, and she had a lift on one side, and the sensation on your nipple can change because they literally do cut around it.
They literally cut them off, and then So yeah, 100%. It's another gnarly surgery that again you don't think about it at the time when what you might have to do to either keep them up or to maintain them. But yeah, I reckon in another 10 years time I'll be like, get it out. I'm not about it.
So in terms of the normal round ones, because I guess for our listeners, there like so many people have implants coming into studios, especially nowadays. So those ones you recommend that does a doctor recommend that they get checked as well? Because can that happen with those ones as well? There's always a risk with anything, isn't there?
Yeah. So look, I don't think up until now, like I read a bit on it, to be honest, and I don't think to now there's been many links to the round, because the round the idea of them is that they're like a I'm trying to think of the word, it's kind of left me the opposite, smooth. I'm like the opposite of rough, smooth surface. Okay, so they move around in there. It's like a kind of like a little beach ball in there, and so they don't create that friction where it constantly rubs against things. So that inflammation is much less. They will develop the scarring around it, just basically because you've stuck something in your body that doesn't want to be there. So it likes to put things around it to isolate it and make sure that if it is bad for you, then it's isolated from the rest of your body. But it's in no way as problematic as far as like stuck in there and, you know, causing the cells and things around it to be inflamed and angry. My first thing, as much as I know my personal situation, I know what I've had to do, my first response is talk to a doctor and talk to somebody that has really good reviews as far as, you know, either people that have done it that you know of, or just have great, investigate on your own accord. They're still doing these anatomical implants, which is horrifying to me. They make people sign a form now that says, just so you know, this can cause cancer, and people have to acknowledge they've read it. And that's a choice that they can make. And to be honest with you, I mean, if you've made that choice, then that's a choice that you can make 100%. I never got that choice. I never got the memo, and I didn't get the retrospective memo saying, oh, by the way, these are in you if you want to get them out. So that's something that it's choice, but make sure that you go to a doctor that gives you all the information. But yeah, for the most part, I think that unless you've had like significant weight loss or whatever, if on top of the muscle and round is probably what most doctors are going to say to pole dancers, just as far as the recovery being easier. And yeah, your ability to execute what you're trying to do with pole won't be as heavily affected by an under the muscle implant.
Definitely. So through your journey and sharing it, we noticed that you did say on Instagram like that you've spoken to a lot of people. Have you spoken to any other pole dancers that have had similar or it's like the same thing happen with these teardrop ones?
Yeah, totally. It was really overwhelming. So I put up this video just one day being like, I think that there was an element of like fear that if this ever happened to anybody else and I didn't speak up, that that would crush me, right? So I never wanted to be known as the person who had shitty implants. That was not something I want to be known as in the pole industry. I'd like to be like, Dallas Dee, great at shows, not great tits. Do you know what I mean? That's not something I wanted to be known as, okay? But the thing is that I've been through this week of like not knowing, and it was the scariest week of my life. And I don't want anybody else to arrive at that week surprised like I was. Do you know what I mean? The reality is that this might happen to other people, but at least they'll kind of go in with the tools that like, oh my gosh, I know what I have to go and see my doctor and be proactive in their own journey. Whereas I felt like this all happened at me and I wasn't prepared at all. So I wanted to inform people. So yeah, and the other thing is that I did feel, like I've said, I've been in this game a really long time. I did feel I've danced alongside a lot of women, and I know breast implants aren't heavily talked about, but you know they're very present in pole industry. You know, it's a bit taboo to talk about the fact that you know you might have had something done to your body to make yourself look better. It's kind of like it's still a bit kind of like you were supposed to be perfect without you know having anything done. But the reality is that lots of girls have them, and I know lots of girls who have them. So I felt this need to be like upfront, and I'm okay to have you know people think that I have shitty boobs for a while if it meant some of my friends and colleagues or people who are listening to me to not have that happen to them. Either the fear of, you know, all the stuff that happened, but actually the actual disease. So I went on my Instagram and just kind of said, look, you know, this is what's happened. You know, this is the process that I've been through. I'm not a doctor, but if you want to talk to me about some of the stuff that's happened to me, or if there's anything that rings true to you as far as, oh, is that me?
Technical difficulties.
Hang on. Yeah, I feel like you're frozen. Hang on.
All right.
I don't know what to do with that.
Oh no, we were doing so well. I hope she's not still talking.
Please keep this page open. You can still hang up or reload.
You there?
Yeah, I'm good. I was about to hang up. You there? Yep.
We were like, we missed that last part.
Yeah. Where were we at?
So I know I jumped on my Instagram and I just said this was what's happened to me, and you know I feel like I want to tell you guys because it was really scary, but also because I don't want it to happen to anybody else. And like I said, this whole kind of legal side of things that I'm not really across. But gosh, I just, you know, if anybody's ever watched Erin Brockovich, she's just like, this feels very like not right. Like there's women that have these in there and they're not told, and there's no one taking no accountability for it, and there are significant links to this. I'm on Facebook groups or whatever. Women are every day being diagnosed with this, and nobody's nobody's taking accountability just yet. It's still very early in that, but just the fact that none of that was apparent to me. So then I got messages and messages and messages from people who I knew had implants, who, we hadn't necessarily discussed it, but we knew, or people who, just students or people who on Instagram who I've never spoken to before but follow me. And they're like, then it was like questions and fears and shared things. Like, for example, I don't know what I have in me. My doctor's closed down. How do I go? Okay. Or, I went to my doctor and he said it was probably hormonal breast pain. Excuse me? Your doctor is a man. How can he tell you what hormonal breast pain feels like as opposed to something with your implant? Do you know what I mean? Like tales of women not being heard and feeling like there might be something wrong or not knowing where to go.
Yeah.
And so I'm not, probably I'm in the dozens of women contacted me being like, where did you go? What do you do? How much was it? If my doctor's not answering me or not available, who is your doctor? Some of the symptoms, mine feels like this. Or just constant, and it was quite overwhelming. The amount of women who carried a lot of shame, that were dealing with a lot of these issues, but hadn't vocalized it because either they were in denial and didn't want to face that there could be a problem, couldn't afford it because it is so expensive, or we just weren't across it. They were like, oh my gosh, I don't know what I have inside me, so I don't know. Like, how crazy is it that you don't know what is in there, and there could be this or it could be not, but you weren't told, or it wasn't foregrounded, or it hasn't been followed up. Like there's no email from your doctor 5 years later or whatever. After you have your implants, you have your day after checkup, your 2 weeks checkup, your 6 weeks checkup, your 12 weeks checkup, and then you're done. Do you know what I mean? And that's great as long as it's problem free, but not always the case. So yeah, and then yep.
I was going to say, there's not a lot of information out there for women to be like, because like you were saying, it's kind of like you get them, and then once you've initially healed, sweet, done, that's it. You don't think about it. Then 10 years down the track, it's like, hang on a second, I need to start thinking about this, because they don't last forever. And I guess when you first get it, it's like, it's the excitement of it.
You would think, though, from a business perspective, maintaining those relationships, if you know that these women need to come back in 10 years' time, maintaining those relationships should be important, right? You would think so, because then they don't have to rethink. They're like, oh, like they've been great, I'm just going to come back here. But they really dropped the ball.
Well, so, I can't say specific. There used to be a rebate through Medicare if you had a rupture in an implant, and that was changed, I think 2018. So there was, I don't know how you to prove why you got the rupture or whatever, but now I know for a fact that, there are some doctors out there that if there is a significant problem within a couple of years, they might help you out with the cost, but you're on your own. You're literally on your own from, if you have them and you've kind of been, okay for a few years, you're on your own as far as like, knowing when to get them done again. I don't know. I was like, I left mine for 12 years, and they're like, what do you mean 12 years, or even 13 years. Nobody tells you what it is, what, I had significant breast pain, and I'm like, is it normal? Or was it, what is normal after 14 years or 13 years with implants? They're supposed to feel a little bit weird, or I'm kind of used to them. So I don't know, like you really are at a loss, because nobody talks about it. Nobody wants to talk about their boobs not being perfect. And then there isn't a lot of information about there at all. So you kind of like sit there, and you quite, like I said, it comes back to that, you feel a bit ashamed, a bit kind of like alone. And I didn't want anybody else to feel like I'd done this, you've done this to yourself, you're kind of in this position, can't afford to fix it. So just sit with it, because it could manifest into something much worse.
Yeah. What was your biggest lesson through, I guess, I don't know if lesson's the right thing, your biggest takeaway through this experience? Like,
I think, it's something that I've constantly thought about in my whole career or whatever, even just as a woman. But it comes back to when I go to Miss Pole Dance before, and you just watch these beautiful women up on stage just being perfect physical specimens, athletic specimens. It's really easy with watching that, but also on Instagram, to think that everybody is perfect and that everybody is, doing great and that there's nobody's dealing with any of the problems that you're dealing with. And so when I like, I'm quite open about various aspects of my life on Instagram, but this was probably the most private thing that I've put out there, because being open about your emotional or your relationship or whatever, it's kind of like, okay, maybe a bit more mainstream, but breasts, like as far as your, I don't know, things that make you feel, sexy or physically good. It's not kind of in vogue to talk about those things not being perfect. As an athlete and as a dancer, you think that you're supposed to be perfect and you're supposed to be on all the time, and that, you're supposed to have abs and you're supposed to look good and feel good. And I was not feeling good, and I probably disassociated from that a lot. I wasn't focusing on it because I didn't want to think about it. And then the fear of having to go through the surgery and being off pole and recovering and what that looked like, and then the surgery being kind of more gnarly than I thought it was going to be. I think I learned that there's a lot more strength in vulnerability and being honest with people about what's going on than just trying to pretend it's okay, because the reality is it's not okay, and it was probably going to come out in the wash anyway. I was going to have to get them out one way or the other. I can be open and honest about what's happening and try and help somebody who might be dealing with the same thing, or, just disappear for 4 months and hope to come back, and nobody notices. And that didn't serve me, and it didn't serve the pole community. It didn't help anybody. And it just made me, pretending it was okay in the lead up made me feel even more isolated. So share the experience and share the vulnerability and share your situation in the hopes that other people will appreciate the honesty, but also it might help them as well.
Yeah. Have you had any negative or nasty comments or anything like in this experience at all? I just came to my mind just then.
So my story was picked up by the Daily Telegraph. I was approached by a writer, and she pitched me the story, and I gave the story and stuff. And the headline was supposed to be cancer linked to breast implants, and it came out on the front page, fake breasts could kill me. And I'm like, that's not what we talk about at all. And then the photographer was like, you can't smile, so here's me like this, like on the photo. And so I was quite like, I felt really like, I don't know, I felt like the word fake and breasts and could kill me was this kind of like over dramatized. It kind of took away from the integrity of what I was trying to say, and it made me feel like this, silly pole dancer who got breast implants, did it to herself, and it kind of made it feel a bit less important, and like, because it was coming from a pole dancer, a silly pole dancer with a fake breasts, and maybe wasn't as far-reaching as it could have been. But that being said, the reporter, who apologised because they said, it was an editor choice for the heading, but said that the very next day, a girl who actually had the cancer type contacted her, and they were writing a follow-up article on it. Regardless of the headline, it had reached somebody who was actually going through that. At the time that I had my implants out, there was something like 16 active cases of this lymphoma that had been linked to implants in Australia. So, yeah, look, I mean, I didn't like the headline. I also did, like I said, it was coming from myself. The first few times I talked about it, I was anxious that people would be like, which one do you think it was? Do you think it was the right one that was ruptured or the left one that was ruptured? I feel like people, I was a bit anxious that people would be like, look, and next time I'm on stage, they'll be like, oh yeah, they are bigger. Do you know what I mean? Like, I was very hyper aware of it. But no, for the most part, everybody's been really supportive of it and pretty happy that I'm talking about it, because, it always, like I said, I didn't want to be known as the one with the bad implants, but taking something that is quite relevant to a lot of people and making it something that's okay to talk about. Like, I think most people are happy with that. It's kind of no longer a deep, dark secret of pole dancers. It's kind of going to be something we talk about.
And I think that's the greatest thing from it all, right? And it's just with anything, mental health, just your general being. And if we just start talking about these things and normalizing them, more people are going to connect, which is one great thing there, but more people are going to get informed and informed properly, because you probably jumped onto Google at some point. Googled, should my breast be like this sore? And probably got a bunch of conflicting information as well. So, and it's hard to know what's right and wrong.
Exactly.
So being able to speak to somebody and compare directly would be so much easier.
Yeah.
So much more powerful.
Yeah, and look, I mean, like I said, I'm not a doctor. I can only share my experiences, but there's not really. When I had to get that MRI, it was only 2 places in Sydney that have been really recommended. It was for a proper breast MRI. So I know those 2 places, and if you spoke to me, then and your doctor didn't. They just referred you to a normal MRI place. Yeah. Then you might be a bit more informed to go to the places that And it was. I'm happy to have done the hard yakka so that I can tell you that. Because it wasn't already done for me. Do you know what I mean? I was literally like a deer in headlights going, like, what am I doing? Where do I go? Who do I talk to? How urgent is this? I actually, if I'm honest, my doctor sent me to get an MRI and I was like, $800? No, I'm not going. And then my doctor was like, no, but like it's cancer and you have to go. And so I'm the first one to say that I was kind of like, not even aware of how bad it was and how problematic this type of condition was until my doctor said, you are going and you're going to have to come up with that $800 and subsequently $22,000 to address this problem, because I didn't know it was that bad. I didn't know it was a thing. And if other people don't know it's a thing, then are you going to, like, a girl who messaged me, her breast had doubled in size. It was swollen so much in there. And she was just like, yeah, I feel like there's something wrong. And I'm like, I think you probably need to get it checked, mate. Like, probably fine, but just get it checked because, if you don't talk about it and you just think it's you, then your doctor's telling you it's hormonal breast pain, then, maybe you leave it.
And the other thing too is we often think like, oh, it wouldn't happen to me. It wouldn't happen to me. Like, I'll be okay. So when they do go, here's your $800 MRI, it's like, I'll be fine. It's uncomfortable, but I can still
100%.
Continue on.
Yeah.
So
that's such a thing.
To wrap this all up, for those who are thinking about getting breast implants or have them, what is your advice to them?
Look, I would never tell anybody, if you got something you want to fix on your body, just do it. Do you know what I mean? Botox is my best friend. Don't even it's only a small business. It's like you roll around. It's like it look like a tornado most of the time. I need all the help I can get. All right. But But when it comes to breast implants, my experience is, of course, I was very well educated on, so I chose a surgeon. I went to 4 different appointments. I chose this one. They're a very well established surgeon. It was just a series of unfortunate events that made me arrive at choosing these implants. They didn't know the link between these implants at the time. So, having had my whole experience, would I have had them done again? Really hard to say, because 22-year-old Dallas was very different to 35-year-old Dallas. Do you know what I mean? Putting literally an old head on young shoulders, probably not. But, they were great for the first 6 or 8 years. Just do your research, go to a really reputable surgeon, spend the extra money. Do not go to Thailand. Do not get the payment plan for $6,000 and incrementally pay it off with Zip Pay. Don't do it. Don't do it. Do the right thing. Get the right surgery happen initially, because if you're going to a reputable surgeon and getting the right stuff done and the right sort of hospital, then it's not going to be $6,000. My one 14 years ago was $12,000, and like I said, this one was 22. It's an expensive thing, so just be prepared for the cost. Do your research. Know that your pole experience might be really different afterwards. Like I said, the second surgery has taken so much longer to recover than I thought, and it does still feel different. I still pinch myself in the boob every time I invert because there's more there than there used to be. I'm like, all the time. There's so many more pole moves these days that rely on chest booby grip than they're used to, and I'm feeling it every single time I do it. Do you know what I mean? And just know that will or may, hopefully not, but it might affect your polling. And also know that, there's not really any way to guarantee to know, how they're going to look at the end. I don't know. Just make sure that you choose the right size for your frame, get all your measurements and that sort of stuff. I looked at myself in a costume that I hadn't worn for the first time since getting my implants, and I was like, oh God, there's a lot going on there. Do you know what I mean? And not a bad thing, but just know that, you probably need to kind of get a real understanding of the measurement, what you have now, how it's going to look, and just do your research and be prepared for the potential for things not to go 100% right. There's things that can happen. They can have all secondary revision surgeries if you have bleeding and that sort of stuff. Hopefully not. You might end up with drains like I did, which is very glamorous, trying to sleep with drains tucked down your pants and whatever. Be prepared to rebuy all of your sports bras, which is so expensive. Like $80 for a sports bra. Do you know how many sports bras I wear in a week? Like, I don't have many, but like it's expensive. Like add an extra $1,000 on your surgery for sports bras. But look, all that being said, if you want to get it done, make an informed decision. Know that you're up for it again in 10 years' time, 100%. Almost start saving for it straight away. And be really informed about what they're putting in. Okay, so make sure that don't get the rough test. Just don't do it. But make sure you're aware of it. And finally, know what a healthy breast for you feels like. So I do get quite significant breast pain during my cycle. I do get it. So that on top of what was going on before, and like I said, when I trained with pole, there was lots of pain going on all the time. So it was really hard to discern what is normal and what is not normal. So you need to really be across your body, feel out, lumps aren't normal. Changes in shape aren't normal. Changes in sensation aren't normal. Nobody can tell you what your normal is. So you need to have a really good sense of that for yourself and then keep that present. And don't let anybody tell you what it may or may not be. Go and see your doctor. Do you know what I mean? And if they tell you to get an MRI, get one. And if they tell you to get an ultrasound, get one. But be really proactive in your journey. Don't be a passive kind of person. You have to be really across it, responsible with it.
How are you going to, I have one more question I just thought of as we're going through that, and then we'll wrap it up.
Yeah.
How are you going to, I guess, take on, challenge, I don't know. How are you going into this new journey with these new breast implants? Like, what are you going to do differently with the new ones?
I pretty much resigned myself to the fact that a 4G isn't going to happen in my lifetime. I feel like I could literally, my implant would probably end up like in my armpit if I ever started a 4G. So I think as far as pole for me, I want to work on 3 or 4 really good combos that I feel really happy with and put them in some routines and feel confident in them, but I'm not going to be pushing my body past what it wants to be or doing anything too crazy because I'm past that as far as an athlete and a dancer anyway. But my boobs, they were scarred and angry, and they had felt every year of those 14 years of dancing with them. So I'm going to be relatively gentle with them. I'm hopefully going to look really great in a costume, filling it out very well. But I'm going to be very nurturing to them in the hopes that they'll last me for the next 10 years or so, and I'll be happy with them, and that they'll, I won't be having to do anything additional as far as until the next surgery I need to do. But yeah, I'm gonna try and dance the best that I can and put on the best shows that I can, but without any sort of gnarly punishment to them because they've been through a lot. And to this day, I still am in pain in certain moves and just for random things or whatever. They're still healing. There's still stitches happening there for up to about 6 months afterwards. So just being kind to them.
I think that's amazing. And I think this whole podcast episode has just been so informative. I did say to Renee before we jumped on, I'm like, I feel like I'm going to get off this, even though I don't have breast implants. I just have to think differently about my boobs and be like...
Just be so thankful for them. Be so thankful for them. Look, I mean, breast implants or no breast implants, whatever it is, uneven ones, whatever, you do you. Do whatever it is that makes you and your boobs happy. Just know what a healthy breast feels like. Know how you feel when be in touch with like I said, there was a disassociation and I was like, that'll be fine. Even though I think I knew I wasn't fine, you probably have to be real with yourself and be like, yeah, look, this is not going to be great if I have to get these out, but what's worse? Do you know what I mean? Like you gotta be a big girl, or you gotta be a grown-up person to make this decision to get them in there, and you got to kind of be real with yourself and hold yourself accountable, and then like be kind to yourself because this is your body, this is your tool, this is the thing that lets you do those crazy things at pole, get up on stage or whatever. So you got to treat it well, right? You got to respect it and you got to do the right thing by it. And sometimes that means doing surgery or getting some stuff done that puts you out of pole for a little while, but you'll come back and maybe not stronger, but I don't know. I'll come back. We'll see. But that's TBC. I don't know how I'll come back, but I will come back. Yeah.
Dallas, I can't thank you enough for coming on Uncovered today, dealing with our couple of technical issues that we've had and everything else. But it has been so great for you to be so candid in your journey, and I think that is what our podcast is all about. Is
mate, I listened to the different types of farts that you broke down, the back farts. I watched that episode, I listened to the episode, and I was like, yeah, okay. I don't know, I hadn't even thought about it, but yeah. So there you go. That's candid for you. The different types of farts you have in a pole class. And I'm like, wow, there we go. I'm going on this podcast. What are you going to talk to me about?
We've gotten better since then.
I appreciated it.
It's
I was
been
like,
a journey.
for sure. No, thanks you guys for having me. Like I said, the more that people talk about this, the more they know about it, the less taboo it is, the happier everybody's going to be, the healthier everyone's going to be, and the less likely people are going to be dealing with the issues that I had. It's not something that you want everybody to have to wake up to or to find out. So just be proactive in your own kind of health, and yeah.
100%. And if people want to find you, where can they find you?
Instagram, I'm Dallas Dee Show Pony, or I'm Dallas Dee on Facebook. My studio website is like the longest of all time, showponypolandburlesque.com.au. But yeah, Insta or Facebook probably your best option. Probably don't look up that article on the Daily Telegraph where it's like fake breasts will kill me, because I don't have. You won't see this smile. You'll see this face. Like, either any of those. I'm available on all those channels. Not Twitter. I don't understand that, or TikTok. But
Yeah, we just busted out the TikTok thing. But
yeah,
the Twitter, we're not on the Twitter
guys.
thing. Yeah.
Not the Twitter.
Yeah, so thank you so much. Sorry, I was just
about
to lose my voice just then. And ladies, we will be talking, or ladies and men, whoever's listening, we're going to be talking boobies all week on our Instagram. So come and hang out with us on Instagram and check out Dallas. And until next time, thanks, guys.
Thank you. Bye, guys.
Thank you. Cool. How do you feel?
Yeah, good.
That was good.
Good. Yeah.
Yeah.
Sorry, I talk really